Right. No, we're live. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another live stream on Moving Home with Charlie. I'm Charlie. Special welcome to the lots and lots of new subscribers and followers in the last couple of weeks. It's been a right old spike. Not quite sure what's done that, but always great to have new people. And a welcome back to all my existing followers and friends and supporters and my opponents and adversaries, because you guys always bring interesting debate. And that's always welcome because at least one of us will learn something every time that happens. Now, that bloke there, he and I go back quite a long way. We met when Perry was starting his own agency in Croydon, and he became a client of my software package at the time. And I have worked with hundreds of estate agency business owners. So I am qualified to say that Perry is easily amongst one of the best I've ever worked with. And I don't just say that from point of view of having him as a client. He was a great client, but I know, and there are a couple of easy reasons to explain this, to justify it. I know he's an outstanding agent because only the best agents don't sign their clients into lock-in sole agency contracts and say, if you're not happy, you can go. That's a demonstration of real confidence and commitment to being in it together with the selling clients. And so Perry, welcome back. It's been a while since you were last on, hasn't it?
Maybe it was 6 months or so, I think. Thank you very much for having me back on. Was it 6 months? It's got to be
think
about
it's
that.
about a year, actually.
Was it?
Yeah.
Wow.
I do think it's about a year ago.
And also, it's worth mentioning, thank you as well. We had a lot of comments, some nice, some not so nice. But somebody on that stream, I think, liked what I was saying and advising. And they contacted my office, and one of our agents went to go and see them. And one of our agents actually moved them. And it was the perfect move, actually, if there is such a thing.
Really?
And that was all because the person who's been listening to your advice, he listened to our advice, and he was absolutely over the moon. So yeah, thank you.
It was a win-win all round. Yeah,
your channel has definitely helped. At least, I know many more, but at least one person move. I see all your comments of lots of people that you're helping, but I can guarantee it's definitely one because we actually help them physically.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's fantastic news. So Perry's business is called Power Bespoke, and you're based just outside Reigate, but you cover basically most of Surrey and a bit of Sussex.
Yeah, we're based in Reigate, and we cover Surrey, Sussex, West Sussex. We've got a client in Kent, and we've sold quite a few in Kent. So just kind of the southeast region, really.
Okay. Fantastic. Now, I am very keen for any sellers who are watching this evening who've got questions about their agent. You haven't got to name yourself or name your agent or even give away too much where you are. But if you've got a situation you'd like to ask us about a difficulty you're having selling your property, or a difficulty with your agent, or you want to get away from them, you're not sure how to approach it, how to say to your agent that you're not happy, anything at all. Oh, look, there he is. Diving Snow. That was me you helped. Great service. Thanks to both you and Simon.
Oh, wow. Amazing.
That's your client. Fantastic. Yeah. That's wonderful. So yeah, if you are a seller and you've got a question, I'll be prioritizing any questions from sellers, but also questions from buyers. If you've had interactions with agents that you have questions about, Perry, as well as running his own estate agency business, is also. Would you call yourself an agency trainer, or you sort of have seminars, don't you, where you share your tips and tricks with other agents?
Yeah, I don't like classing myself as a trainer. A standards raiser. There we go. I guess it is training, but I don't do one-on-one. I've got a online training platform, which a lot of agents join to consume the content. I run a 2-day event every year for estate agents to spend 2 days in a room. But my focus is moving people onto the next chapter of their life through my own estate agency. That's my main focus.
And I think it's worth everyone also knowing that you decided when you were 12 years old you wanted to be an estate agent. Is that right?
Yeah. And I've got kids now, haven't I? And I'm like, dude, you're 13. Like, come on, what are you gonna do? But yeah, I was one of them lucky or unlucky, who had my sights set, knew what I wanted to do, and went after it.
Now, there's a few topics I want to touch on while we wait for a few. There's a couple of questions trickling in, and I will be. So Jill Hayes, it's Power Bespoke is the name of Perry's agency. I will start tagging the questions as they come in, but there's a couple of topics I wanted to discuss with you first. It would appear that very few people, including actually a lot of agents, are unaware that the Consumer Protection Act from 2008 states that all businesses, but including estate agents, must provide all material, what they call material information, with anything that you're trying to sell. And National Trading Standards has elaborated on that by providing lots of guidance, pages and pages of guidance, specifically for estate agents, where they specify what information under that act you are expected to provide on the properties you're marketing. And yet, most buyers out there looking will tell you, no, there's just nothing. There's hardly any information. We can't, even when we ask for it, they don't know the questions. So my question to you is, as an agent, what is your approach with your clients to the material information, and how much does it help or hinder the process of selling? And what do people need to know about it from your point of view?
Really good question. So my view on it is warts and all. So these consumer protection acts protect people from unscrupulous practices by unscrupulous people. I think if you're a decent human being, if you know something's a problem, and unfortunately a lot of agents do this, is they hope the problem doesn't rear its head. But if you know that there's a likely problem, nip it in the bud early. And if it's fallen through because of a bad survey, don't turn a blind eye. Proactively say to your client, look, this is going to happen again, so let's get this solved before we go back to the market. I had a really similar one. Literally, I was out to see a client this week, and this is a good example. He's lived in the property since 1987. I remember that because that was the year I was born. And it was down a really rural track, and I was asking the questions that a buyer's going to ask me: who maintains the track, who owns the track? And the guy was like, no idea. We just fill the holes every couple of years when it gets bad. So I was like, great, before we do anything, let's look into that. And he's got a cesspit that drains into the land, but it's got no filtration system, no digester. And he was like, yeah, will it come up? Should we just give it a try? And I was like, a lot of people would, but we're not that type of agency. If we need to put a mini treatment plant in, you're going to have to do that, because regulation changed. And I know this because of another house I was selling. It was a very old house, and it was draining foul into the river Mull, which was quite common in Victorian times by all accounts, but it's not legal anymore. So in a nutshell, to answer your question, just get ahead of the problem before the problem arises. Yeah. Things like, one really big common one at the minute is spray foam insulation. Don't know if anyone's come across that. It's an absolute nightmare. And you've got half the industry, I think, would say, let's just see if the surveyor picks it up. The surveyor's going to pick it up. And there's half that are saying, let's get that removed, because even with a 0.5% chance of being a problem, let's eradicate the problem before it becomes a problem. Lenders won't lend on houses 99% sure on this. Speak to brokers that have had spray foam insulation. And the irony is, most people had it done in 2020 under the government's green grant. And the government's now not got a solution in place. But I digress. Be upfront. Fix any problems. If it can't be fixed, be upfront. Things like, very common things that crop up is, I installed some patio doors 5 years ago, but I didn't get it done properly by a fencer regulated installer. Fine, get it retrospectively, or get an indemnity policy and offer that to the buyer before it comes up as a problem. The more the buyer's solicitor uncovers, the more chance it's going to fall through. If you give them a list of problems and here's the solution, the buyer's like, fair enough. It's a bit like putting a plaster on a damp wall. Like, if it painting it with anti-mold paint and hoping it doesn't come up when the surveyor comes around, can of worms, buyer gets worried, backs out. That's probably why the fall through rate is 35 to 40%, because I don't think enough agents are being, forgetting the consumer protection, I don't think enough are being transparent, upfront, warts and all kind of marketing.
I put a little a survey out on X just before we started, actually, which might be interesting for everybody. To ask people, anyone who's been involved in a transaction in the last year or so, on either side, how did it go? And so 33% completed first time at the first price. There's only 70 votes so far. 10% completed but renegotiated, or the price was changed for whatever reason. 18 fell through but then managed to put it together and complete. And then 38% fell through and the transaction failed, which chimes with what Zoopla was saying, 40% of transactions failed last year. But the interesting thing there is that that's well over 55% failed or fell through, some of which was then saved, some of which weren't. But so 2 out of 3 transactions at the moment are at best having a renegotiation and at worst are falling through. That's it. I mean, I don't know if that chimes with your. I mean, you will have a better stats than that, I'm sure.
Well, let me share. I don't know if you want. Remember, don't share this on screen, but maybe you've got your phone there and you can have a look at it.
Yeah.
But I was sharing some data of a client, and we've got a fall through ratio of 25%, right? And you're never going to avoid it as an agent because things change in people's lives. They change their minds. Things do crop up that weren't able to be salvaged.
Yeah.
But when you compare that, and this is why I don't share it on screen, but when you compare that to another agent in a similar town to us, like the same town, they got a 48% fall through rate.
It's not, honestly, I'm looking at these numbers. They're amazing.
And what's important on that report, right? And maybe we can share it to your viewers later and I'll block out.
Well, I can take those brands out. So I'll do.
But it's things like one of these agencies has got a reduction probability of 53% compared to our 16.7%. And it's just shocking. When I looked at that myself, that's a new data source that I've had access to. And I look at it and think, I knew we were good, but Jesus Christ, I didn't know they were that bad.
Yeah, I know. It's really, really shocking. So I'm just going to edit that image and then put it on the screen. So I've removed all the other brands, right? All the brands. So it's just literally showing the numbers. Because this is honestly fascinating. Fascinating. And is this the list of the top 5 agents or 6 agents in that area?
One of those agents, the client I was talking to, is currently for sale with them. So I just said to them, look, I'm not here. I won't talk bad about anybody, but here's some data from an impartial kind of resource that tracks all the same metrics. And you've got a much higher probability of completion with us, a much higher probability of risk of reduction without us, if that makes sense.
But also your days to sold, your days to offer agreed is 15 days. The next best is 23 and the others are 31, 56 and 97 days. I mean, that is a wild spread.
Yeah, and look, it's data don't lie, but data is up for
debate.
Debate. But it's about knowing the data and making a decision based upon it. A client might not want an agent that sells a property in 15 days on average for 99.9% of asking price. They might want an agent that takes 60 days, and I get this a lot sometimes, at 96% of asking price. But
see, this is the data. If the public could see this sort of data, it would change everything. It would change the whole industry if the public had access to what you've just shown me.
Yeah, it's
and yet, even though the data's there, the industry won't share it. And that's what I want to change. I don't believe in naming and shaming anyone, naming and shaming brands, unless it's something obviously public and outrageous. But I'm going to post that photograph later I'll double check with you that there's nothing on there. I've removed all the brands because just as a snapshot, that's fascinating, absolutely fascinating what you've done there. So I mean, the point is, it's a tough old market, isn't it? It's I mean, everyone I'm talking to everywhere says, just generally speaking, it's a bit harder than usual to get deals over the line, just because of the friction and the number of fall throughs everywhere in the chains.
Yeah, I think we've had, and I don't know, I can't speak about everybody, but certainly we've had the seasonal bounce of January, Christmas, January. So let's not all get too excited just yet. And I'm very conscious of that. I'm not one of these guys that. We're 35% up for the same period last year, but I think that's because there's a transition of education as well for home sellers and sellers. Yes, what's interesting about when you look at the data, so I was crunching some numbers, right, and take some of this. So since the 1st of December, we've had 45 offers on properties, right?
Okay.
That's across 24 properties. So quite a lot of properties we get multiple offers.
Yeah.
We've agreed 21 of those 24 properties into sales agreed at an average increase from initial offer to agreed price of 2.65%. Now, compare that to 18 months ago before mini budget and stuff, and our average increase from initial offer to agreed was around 3.5% to 4%.
Okay.
So buyers are very rightly so. They're very much more reluctant, maybe, to go all in, multiple bids and multiple offers. But our average percentage of marketing price at the time is 99.9%. And this is where it's important to be transparent. Our average percentage of original marketing price, as per the data you're going to share later, we do reduce some properties. Unfortunately, we don't get it right all the time, but it's a very low percentage, is 97.8% of original market launch price.
Right.
So yeah, I'm a bit of a data geek.
Yeah.
Not all sellers want. Some sellers want a quick sale because of their situation.
Yep.
Some sellers want to try for 3 months, and they'd rather not price ahead of the market. They would rather follow the market. Maybe that's a whole other discussion, but
this is another point. Is very few people understand that your approach to marketing a property will vary depending on things like speed, how quickly you need to get moved or not, and every vendor's personal circumstances is what feeds into your launch marketing strategy, right?
Exactly that. And I had it's important that not everybody wants to be on the market for a long time. I've got a client that bought another property, their house sitting empty, and they were like, the time it should take to agree a sale should never change. That's the consistent, right?
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that changes is the price it's likely to sell at. And the trouble is, 30 days on market, maybe buyer starts to think it's been kicking around a bit too long, and it starts being quite damaging. 60 days, 90 days, 6 months, and there's a massive correlation between amount of offer under asking price and time on market.
Yeah.
Look at any data set for that. But the average time to agree a sale should be maximum 4 weeks on a property after market launch. If it hasn't gone in that time, something's wrong.
I really wanted to make sure everyone heard that. The maximum time it should take to go, was it price agreed?
Sale agreed,
4 weeks.
Mm-hmm. And in that time, you should have had multiple viewings, ideally 2 to 3 offers. A successful campaign should be the same in any market. The only as in launch the market, good interest from the start, competing offers within the 4-week period. The thing that changes, the variable in that process, is the price that you're marketing at. And it's important to distinguish the difference between a marketing price and a target price. We regularly, just recently, 47% of properties we market and sell are from us, is second-hand business. So it's come from another agent who's failed to sell it in the first place.
So could you repeat that stat?
Yeah, so 47% of properties that we're asked to sell, we don't sell all of them, but 47% of properties that we're instructed on have previously been for sale with another estate agent before us.
Again, any seller watching this, you really need to let that sink in. Because Perry, what's your job like to sell the property second time round? It's most agents I've spoken to, especially back in London when I used to do photographs and floor plans for lots of big agencies like Douglas and Gordon and stuff. They used to say, buyers will notice the same property coming back onto the market second time round, and it's always a bit harder to sell it second time round.
Yeah, generally, and here's what generally happens, right? Let's say you appraise, and we lose clients to other agents regularly. We only take on 50% of what we go and spend an hour and a half sitting down talking to. Right. 50% brand wide.
Okay, so you don't lose them to other agents, but you're not the chosen agent first time in 50% of cases, is what you mean. So because it sounded like you're talking about what you were disinstructed on there.
No. So let's say we go and visit 50 clients and give them advice about their move.
Mhm.
People call those valuations. We don't use the word valuation. We go and sit down and give them advice on how to get the best price.
This is not a fucking valuation, is it?
Yeah, that will be on my on my headstone. So yeah, we'll from 50 people, we'll generally win 25 clients.
Mhm.
Some of those might be on the market currently with agents currently. Some are fresh to market. And then of those 25 we don't win, half of those will go to other agents, maybe because they were given a higher price, or we said, look, we're not the agent to market at that price, you best try somebody else. And 25 won't come to market, or half of that 25 won't come to market because they'll decide to put an extension on or loft conversion or decide not to move. So it's interesting.
Yeah. So could you please just let my audience know, from an agent's point of view, the general levels of overpricing happening in estate agency, and what you do? Because I mean, I'm assuming, if I was to say to you, what's the number one reason for not winning the 50% that you don't win?
25% we don't win initially. So lots of those 25% we will speak that they'll then fall into the 47% of clients that come to us having failed with a previous estate agent.
And is it almost always on price? Is it almost always because it was launched too expensive?
No. Sometimes it's fee, because we're a bespoke, high performance, high service, higher fee agency,
Okay.
and I don't begrudge anybody for giving a cheaper option a try.
Mhm.
But generally, buy cheap, buy twice tends to be the general consensus. Without the right, I guess one piece of advice that I would give your great audience is, when it comes to estate agent fees, you think you're doing yourself a good service by driving them down on fee. You want to go the other way. You want to say, what's your fee? And they'll say, 0.75% or 1%. And you'll say, well, I'll pay you 0.25% if you can get me under offering for asking price in so much time. So
1.25.
what's that?
So you said you paid 0.25%. Did you mean 1.25?
Sorry, yeah. What? Pay them more they're asking for. Become the highest business yielding, revenue generating listing on their books.
Yeah.
Not the one where they leave your house deflated and battered and think, why the hell have I taken that on the market?
Yeah.
Oh, I had to take it on the market because I've got a boss breathing down my neck that said take it on at any cost. So I digress, because I'm going to go off on a rant in a minute, I think, but I'll try not to.
No, go for it. We all love a rant.
But it's of those ones that we don't initially win. A lot of the time it's to higher valuations.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the time it's to lower undercutting fees.
Sorry, when you say it's too high valuation, you mean what? The seller wants too high a valuation, or you haven't given a high enough valuation? It's not because you've overvalued it, is it?
No. Sorry, no. Because generally it is a tricky one, right? Because I also don't begrudge anybody. If you're seeing 3 or 4 agents and 2 of them are saying you're going to get 800,000, and one of them saying you're going to get 750, and one saying I'm not too sure, but let's give it a go. I don't really begrudge anybody giving that a try, as long as it's not coming with a tie-in period of 25, 24 weeks. But the problem is, the red flag should be they're the highest valuation and they're the longest tie-in.
Yeah.
And I'm of our whole company, not me, is an advice of, you can't underprice a house, you can only overprice a house. Mm-hmm. So best to price low, sell high, than price high, sell low. Mm-hmm. But there's so much more to that, because people might say, oh, yeah, easy for you, sell them, stack them high, sell them cheap. Loads has to come around that, as in, you have to build in with your agent a performance fee and the target price. So let's say I had a client very recently, they were on the market for 850 with another agency. I told them originally 800 in the region of. They went with the 850. Nothing happened for 3 months. Come back to me and say, can you market it? I was like, yeah, I'd love to. We'll go offers in excess of 800. But because you've kind of, excuse the term, kind of battered it around the market for the last 3 months stagnant, it's different. Like, it's not, the price put on it back then is different now, because it's now stagnant, and most buyers in the marketplace have seen it, dismissed it, and clearly not offered on it. So it's really hard for an agent to rekindle interest in a overexposed stagnant property. So anyway, I did launch it because their marketing was a bit subpar. There's only 4 reasons why your house isn't going to sell. One is price, one is person, the other one's presentation, the other one's promotion. And my feeling was that they're the wrong person. They were priced wrong. Their promotion was terrible and the presentation was shocking. So for me to then say, well, if all that was good and they still didn't sell, then I would have to have taken it on at a lower price. But there was quite a lot wrong. So I said, look, let's take it on. So I've done it, launched it to market. We ended up getting interestingly. Now, this is what sellers need to go into the mindset of selling their house. They're not there to get a buyer.
Yep.
They're there to get multiple offers to choose a buyer.
Oh, Perry, why is it so many agents don't get that?
We can go into that in a minute, but so we launched it. We done amazing. We had elevator photography, drone photography, twilight photography, premium marketing, low key pre-launch marketing. And at the end of the campaign, we had offers from 760. Bear in mind, offers in excess of 800.
Yeah.
To 820.
Okay. All
right. So this is why it's very hard for agents, and because we aren't buying the property, so we should know what happened in the we should be able to predict what's going to happen in the market based on what happened yesterday. But yesterday's yesterday, tomorrow's tomorrow. So that's why I never give a promise on a price. It's not a effing valuation. We give advice on how to maximize the price. So when offers over 800, offers in excess of 760, 820, we ended up taking the 810, which was completely cash.
Right.
And it's a great outcome. That's exactly what should have happened 3 months prior.
Yeah.
But the higher valuation, the lower undercutting fee looked tempting. I understand it. I never begrudge anyone. I always leave my door open, and a high percentage of those come back later down the line. But it's very hard to, again, I mean, as much as I'm good at estate agency, I'm not very good with words, but it's quite hard to flog a dead horse.
Yeah. Well, it's easy, but you won't get anywhere.
No, well, and it comes, there's loads of analogies, offer someone a £5 note for £5 and they're going to offer you £3. Put it on for £3. Everyone's going to want to buy it. You'll get £4.95 for it.
Yeah.
So plus the choice of which person you like and which buyer you want.
We've got so many great questions, and we've been talking for a long time already. So I want to start. I've actually tagged a lot of these. I've got 15 things tagged. I'm going to try and pick the ones that I think are most valuable to sellers first. Just saw one now. It came on. Here we are. Right. So Paula Evans on YouTube says, trying to sell since April 23. So that's 9 months now. But as Charlie says, now my listing looks old. Chains broke late, circa 8 weeks. I have viewings, most not proceedable, have done price drops. Should I come off?
So if your situation allows, give it a rest. Yeah. That's the caveat, is if your situation allows. Now, obviously, we've got clients that are financially struggling and they couldn't possibly take it off for a couple of months. The rules, if you like your agent, and I'm not saying take it off your agent and try a new one, maybe the pricing is correct, it's just a little bit stagnant. Maybe the person handling, and I mean person, I don't mean the
brand.
Yeah, it's not the 3 Ps and a B or a C, it's the 4 Ps. As long as the promotion, the presentation, the person, the pricing is accurate, there's only so much you need to keep, I think, hacking it until you're like, actually, give it a rest, relaunch, but it needs to be off your current agent's books for 12 weeks before it will launch as a new listing.
Right.
Sorry, go on.
No, I was going to say that situation, Paula's situation is a difficult one, isn't it? If it's been on, but chains broke late. So Paula, I'm assuming from that you actually did have a deal agreed, but the chains broke down and it came back on the market. That's really, really bad news. Really bad.
And just to dig down a bit on that, is we deal with that quite a lot. Is I guess the price was agreed historically, the chain fell through, and so that price was agreed in the market at that time. What that can sometimes do is pitch people's expectations at a level that's no longer realistic because things have changed. So I've just noticed
this comment here is also from Paula, and this was earlier. So pleased to hear your view on agents with no time. Just changing my agent in Kent, and a new agent has said he will not time into any contract. Just ask for a fair crack.
Nice. Yeah,
fine.
great. Another layer of that, though, is that if the brand if the brand's default position is a contract, but this guy said he won't tie you in, that's also a bit of a concern. Because the practices of the agency as a whole, the agent you're dealing with might be absolutely amazing and really honourable and ethical and trustworthy. But
there's a chap here called Nathan M on YouTube who says, had only one offer from a first-time buyer on my property in September last year. I'm trying to upsize and I can't find anywhere. Closest property to my budget to move is 40k overpriced and won't budge on price. I'm stuffed. That must be frustrating because, I mean, there's two deals there waiting to happen, aren't there? There's two moves that could happen.
They will budge on price, but not until they can smell the money. And they won't be able to smell the money until you're proceedable with your property.
Fascinating insight, Perry. Thank you much. So this echoes what I've always said to people, which is make sure you've got a proceedable offer on your home before you make offers elsewhere, or they won't be taken seriously.
So a lot of the time with clients, we build in like a 12-week plan, right? So we don't tie people into 12 weeks. We'll say, look, you need to launch after 4 weeks or 6 viewings, whichever the sooner. If there's no solid offers, we've got a review. And we do that as a planned kind of then. So we'll try 700 and then we'll get offers in excess of 650 or guide price 675. Because the very great position that Nathan's in is that he's upsizing in the market. What a great time to be upsizing. You know, he might lose 5% on his if he's selling, I don't know what the price is, would say 200,000. But if he's buying at 400,000, he's better off moving now and taking a lower price on his and saving on the purchase. I know they say they won't budge, but they will. You just need someone experienced and able to negotiate that for him.
Right. Well, Nathan, I hope that's helpful. I hope that gives you a bit of something to go back and work with. Right, lots more good stuff to go through here. We had someone who said, "Oh, ballet news. For anyone on the fence, Perry is a first-class agent and thoroughly good human, so please consider his company Power Bespoke." There you are. I wonder who that is. I wonder if that's a...
Yeah, I would love to know ballet news. Thank you.
Yeah, if you're looking for...
But now I'm nervous. If people seem to know of my reputation, and I go on these things, right? Because not everyone would agree with what I say, but I'm up for saying it, and hopefully most of them will agree with what I say. But I'm not too worried if people don't, because it's an opinion, but a 20-year opinion.
No, it's thoroughly deserved. Perry, I wouldn't be asking you on this channel and saying that I think you're one of the best agents I've ever worked with if I didn't think so. And I'm genuinely in the position to say that. you know, loads of my clients have been award-winning agents, right? I had a lot of really high-quality award-winning agents. So I know what I'm talking about when it comes to whether or not an agent's any good, I promise you. And the numbers that Perry's just shown me, even though I know how good he is, it absolutely blow me away. I mean, you are head and shoulders above all those other agents in that list. Gordon Holmes says, offer accepted, survey done, conveyancer started searches, advised to have a drainage survey, sewage being dumped into ancient woods. Both the estate agent and vendor knew. System condemned, pulled out, cost me $5,000. So this is why there's no point in hiding it, is there?
Firstly, Gordon, I'm really sorry about that, because that is just poor form, but that's exactly what we were saying. The minute I see cesspit, I'm asking, where's it draining to? Have you got a Clydester or a treatment plant? Oh, no, it's in a land drain. I was like, okay, cool. Let's get that sorted out then. And, you know, this could be a whole nother discussion, but it's a lot of the time it's because these big companies, I was managing branches for them once upon a time, let people in living rooms giving advice on pricing and sales strategy that haven't really got a clue, haven't done a day's training in their life, and they just say, you know, my old area manager, and I don't like talking like this because it's about my industry that I'm so passionate about, but I think it's important people do know some of these things. When I left employment and I had to set up my own company, I really couldn't find a company that resonated with me and I enjoyed working with, so I was like, I'm going to set my own up, and it's been bloody hard, and it still is. The last, 2010 we first met, didn't we?
Yeah, that's right.
And it's a grind, but the straw that broke the camel's back, area manager comes in, So right, this was just off the back of 0708 banking crisis. You know, I was one of the few to keep employed during that period. Massive 6-man office, me and an administrator trying to navigate the market. And it was like, right, Perry, the market's on the turn. Stick 10% on whatever you think and sign them up and get them on. And I was like, yeah, God's honest truth this is. And I was like, but how about no, we just educate to the fact that the market's on the turn. You might end up getting 10% more because the market's on the turn with the right strategy and the right pricing strategy. But let's be honest. And that's why I think things like undisclosed information, even though they knew about it, worse than that, you know, things like that. Gordon's pulled out, right? That house go back on the market. I bet the agent and seller still don't tell the next buyer coming through the door.
Which is just like shooting themselves in the foot, isn't it? It's so stupid. It's such a waste of their own time as well as everyone else's.
Shooting everyone in the foot, wasting their own time. They're doing everyone an injustice. Yeah. Get a bloody mini treatment plant fitted. What's it going to cost? 5-6 grand? Sure, maybe a slightly more, but you'll save that in bloody stress and emotion and aggravation.
Right, so I've got lots of good questions. I want to get through these. Okay, Chen Gutu on YouTube says, how do you, Perry, come up with asking prices on property? What's your process?
Really good question. A very, very thorough one.
First of all, you don't ever call it an asking price, do you?
No. So, I was having a chat with, I went to a house last week, which is coming on the market soon. I was certain it was worth 3 million before I went through the door, based on all my really affluent area. Dealt with the family for years. Sold the brother's house for 2 and a bit million. The brother's now looking to move. Called me in. No other agents, and I find that more pressure. By the way, that's the thing that you work your whole life for, to have. You're the only agent they call in. Yeah. But I find it more pressure to make sure I get it right. Right. Because we can't always be right. Have three agents, you'll get 3 opinions on price because we're not buying it. The market decides. But the process is very, very. I spend an hour at least of pre-visit prep. I got to the house and I was like, Nick, this has stumped me. I was sure it was gonna be 3 million, and it's not going to be that, I'm afraid. But I need more time now to go back and do more research and blah blah blah. Anyway, in the end, we're going to market it offers in excess of 2.25 million, and he's over the moon with that. The others, have I answered that a bit better? The process is lots of research. Taking sold comparables in my book are less important than currently for sale competition.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that.
So I've had a lot of people say to me, yeah, well, they said mine's only worth that because that one sold for that 9 months ago. And I was like, yeah, that was 9 months ago. Whether it's more or less, it's irrelevant. It's a guide. Buyers are going to see it. We need to be aware of it. We need to be prepared with it. But it has no relevance to what your house is worth today. Because back then, there might have been 7 similar houses for sale to that one. And today there's 14 or there's none. So there is a bit of science to it, but there is a lot of art and experience and gut feel to it as well. Knowing your supply and demand, knowing your market.
Knowing your experience, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
Yeah. Right, I'm going to keep going because there's some fantastic questions. A quick one here from a fellow YouTuber called Vince Samios. Perry, want to sell a home in Shropshire?
Right? People laugh because people say, so where do you sell houses? And I'm like, well, predominantly in the southeast. We've sold in Newcastle, Aberdeen, right up in Scotland. And like that. Why? How? And it's literally because we are so passionate about great service, great results. We get people ring us up and say, you are selling my house in Newcastle because you sold you sold my cousin's house in Reigate. And I mean, we're based in Reigate, and your viewer, we sold their property in Bromley, which is on a bad day, an hour and 45-minute drive from us towards London.
Right.
So yeah, potentially give us a shout and we'll maybe try and help you.
Vince, I can put you in touch with Perry. You can find yourself very easily, Perry Power Bespoke. But I know Vince has been, he was, that'd be a good conversation. I hope that conversation comes to something. Interesting question from a viewer called Lisa Woods, a buyer here. She says, did a viewing for a house up for auction, which has since been removed. Now being told I still have to go through the auction company instead of the new listing agent. Is this normal? That's very weird.
So this goes deep, right? So there's a lot of auction providers which aren't
Right.
really auction. They're just there's like a modern there's
Okay, the
traditional.
modern method was not really an auction, is it?
It's a load of absolute crap, right?
I'm so glad to hear you say that.
And now I was trained by an auctioneer, so I know traditional auction at the back of my hand, and I think it's a fantastic sale method for a lot of people in certain situations. And there's a lot of private treaty situations that are being suggested modern method of auction, and it's just the wrong advice. But to answer Lisa's question, it very much depends. So when something goes to auction, the auction house does have an exclusive period prior to the auction that they still can sell it, basically. So it might be, if it's just gone up for auction, what can sometimes happen is the private treaty agent puts it for sale a bit too early, but the auction company have still got kind of a sole selling rights agreement on that property. So that's probably what is happening, I'm guessing.
Okay. So Max Crooks on YouTube, agents just laugh at you when you put offers in where I am, Biggin Hill, Westerham. Prices are a joke. Do you is that slightly outside your patch, or do you occasionally do stuff there?
Oh, we do stuff. I mean, that's very near to going headed towards Bromley and Beckenham and places like that. We've just helped a viewer of your channel. Yeah, look, I mean, I don't know how hard you're hitting on price. They definitely shouldn't be laughing at you for sure.
Right, exactly. That's the point.
Whether they're kind of could be more tactful and professional in the way they're handling it. I had a really good chat with a lady today, and this is quite good. So I tend to deal with very few sales because we've got things are busier with the business and people and whatever, but I do handle one or two at a time. And I had a lady who viewed a house with me that's on offers over 2 million in a beautiful village in Newdigate in Surrey. She said to me, I think I should offer at least 15% under asking price. That seems to be like what I'm kind of reading online. What should I do? And obviously, I said to her, you need to offer what you were happy to pay for it. You need to offer, as a selling agent, you need to offer as most you're prepared to pay for it. And then I can put it to the sellers. But where people get a bit of misconception, so I sold another house it was in December. It was on at 2.5 million, but I sold that for 2.8 million because it was extremely good value, and that was the strategy.
Yeah.
So don't just apply a calculation to an asking price. You need to do more research.
Yeah.
And there is the alienating the seller is a real thing. So just be conscious of that.
Okay, that's interesting. What you mean? So sometimes the seller won't entertain an offer from another buyer again, even if it's the only one, just because they pissed them off too much the first time.
Yeah, and a lot of the time it's the agent's job to, agents. We're also a filtration process, but some people have really strict principles, and you can make it sound as lovely and as you like. But if you're coming in 200. We had one recently, a property on the market at 285. They offered 246, and it really didn't get accepted. And maybe it's because I'm a little bit, I don't know. If I always believe that if a seller's prepared to sell their 285 flat for 246, it wouldn't be on the market for 285. But that's because I judge by my own standards.
Right.
A lot of agents maybe don't do that and advise accordingly. A big percentage.
Sorry, go
on. A big percentage of properties that we take on the market where we felt the marketing price or the marketing strategy was too high, I would say 8 out of 10 of them say that's totally fine with me. Someone just needed to tell me that.
Yeah.
So agents' fear of, I can't sell them that because they might sack us.
This is the comment I've got on the screen now, because this is the point about agents not willing to enter into any negotiations. And I get countless stories from my followers about properties that they knew that sold and that they would have bought, but the agent said, "Oh no, we won't even accept that offer." And there are agents closing the doors to people just trying to open a conversation. And it's always worth. You never know which one's going to go. If you've got a few people lining up to talk about it, You just never know. And I hear this story of agents just flatly refusing people, not even putting offers forward, which of course they're supposed to do. That's a good question for you. At what point does it become a legal requirement for you to put an offer forward? Is it if it's a verbal offer, or can you disregard a verbal offer, or must it be in writing for you to be obliged to put it forward?
I've always been led to believe verbal.
Right. So if you receive a verbal offer, okay.
But that might just be because I think my own standards are probably higher than the documented consumer protection standards.
Yeah.
Yes, you want to be putting it through formally in writing. And, I think it's ridiculous. This is why agents need a good slap a lot of the time, because they need to understand. And I tell my clients, like, I'll pass on every offer through to you. And I'll even be aiming to extract offers to start a conversation. And if they're like, don't tell me about anything under 800, then I'm like, well, I'm going to, because we need something to start with. And if you don't want me to do that, then I'm not the agent for you. And you need to find one that's going to flatly, unless they mandate us in writing to flatly refuse offers. But even then, they still end up wanting to know what the offer was.
I had a one-to-one video call with a client, so I get movers who now book time with me to just talk through their moving plans with me. And he's a buyer up in Sheffield with a 7-figure budget, and that gets, he was telling me that gets you some pretty special places. And he said there was one agent, he went to look at a property, he loved the property, it was on at 1.2, and he said to the agent, right, okay, I'm interested. What are you to offer? Well, you've got to offer over asking. You've got to offer over asking. And he said, what offers have you got? And the agent said, we've got one at asking and one other. He went, oh, okay. And so he didn't offer, because he believed the agent who said they had an offer at asking price when they didn't have an asking price. He then subsequently found out, when it went through, that it sold for just below 995. And he said, I would have offered 1.1.
Yeah.
And when the agent lied to me and told me he had an asking price 1.2, had to be more than that, he talked himself out of an offer that he said I would have bought that house.
Agents need to realise that they're not gatekeepers. They're negotiators. They're not even messengers, but I think a lot of agents do think they're messengers. They just pass a message from one place to the next. I mean, we are the advisors, and I regularly advise buyers, of course, that's a great start, and I'll put that to the sellers, but I really don't expect it to be accepted. Yeah. It's probably worth you thinking about your next move, but I'll come back to you shortly. Okay. So yeah, the standards in agency, unfortunately, are very low, and that needs to change.
Leandro Z says, as a first-time buyer, what are 2 or 3 things to spot that a property is overpriced? You got any classic signs of an overpriced property?
I mean, time on market generally is a big indicator, but not always. It might have just been really poor marketing and very poor agent. I saw loads of comments about Rightmove, and we all hate Rightmove, but some agents don't even advertise on it, and it is the biggest UK at the moment property window display. Another thing is, you would know if you're viewing the market, right? If you're out there viewing a good handful of properties every Saturday, absolutely. And my question as trying to be a helpful agent to buyers is, what's overpriced to you might not be overpriced to them, and what's overpriced to them might not be overpriced to you, because every buyer's got different requirements and non-negotiables and things like that. You would. Okay. It's only ever overpriced to you. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I see. Yeah. So you're echoing my point, which is, if you need to know what's happening where you want to buy or move, you've got to be out there viewing properties, because that's the only way you'll know what's happening today in the market where you want to move. There's no other way of doing it.
Viewing and offering. I believe for every 5 sellers, 3 have to sell, 2 want to sell, 3 need to sell, 2 want to sell.
Right.
And you won't know that.
Unless you're viewing, you won't find out.
You shouldn't know that, because agents, if they say there's a divorce situation, for example, they shouldn't be disclosing that to people. They can mention that it's a no-chain situation, but they shouldn't be mentioning the underlining driver of the sale, because that can affect how people might offer. But
that's an interesting point, because a lot of buyers want to know the seller situation, and there are some agents who will quietly tell you on the sly what the seller situation is. There's someone say, I can't tell you anything at all. But often the seller situation is a material consideration for a buyer, because if a buyer is on a timeline to buy a home and is thinking of buying a property that they're looking at and doesn't know that there are risks of those sellers pulling out for whatever reason because of their personal circumstances, then that can be pretty hard to swallow for buyers. And I get buyers saying, it's been going through for months and now my seller's backed out. My seller's not moving or can't move, or because their life circumstances have changed, and they find out that it was something that actually, had they known from the beginning. So it's
I don't think it is a good point, but I don't think that gets solved by the material information. That should be solved by the actual process of buying and selling houses in this country. That needs to change. The root problem of the process needs to change, and that will be solved by that.
Sorry, I wasn't suggesting it was material information in terms of what NTS is saying. I'm saying just in terms of the considerations for the buyers. But
yeah,
here's a great question from Leo Lease, and I've got a strong opinion on this one, but I'll start with what you think. Would it be desperate to check with an estate agent to see whether a house listed as sold, subject to contract, has gone through? So as a buyer,
yeah. So just to understand that, as in to say.
So you're a buyer, you've been to see a house, but they say, sorry, it's sold, and it's showing sold subject to contract. Would it be desperate for the buyer to ring up and go, has it actually sold yet, or is it still going through?
Not desperate at all. Please, you should, because an agent would want to say, Leo, thanks so much for your inquiry. That is under offer. The client has instructed us to not carry on further viewings, but we'll add you to the first reserve viewing list. But what actually happens is they can't be asked with a phone call. So they just say, it's gone, sorry, take care.
Yeah.
And equally, if you've previously viewed the property, I don't, again, this is where agents need to be careful, and cue the horrible comments in a minute, but we're legally obligated to pass through all offers on that property until exchange of contracts, right?
Until exchange of contracts?
Yep.
Okay.
So if you've previously viewed the property, but at the time you weren't in a position to offer, but it's now gone under offer, and you're now in a position to make an offer, you should put an offer forward potentially, and the agent would have to pass that on to the seller. It's not the agent's job to make the seller's mind up and make a decision for them. It could be, and it happens quite a lot, that buyer is showing signs of the 40% collapse rate we just spoke about. It could be that buyer is showing signs of dragging their heels, maybe a bad survey's cropped up, it could fall through, and it's great that Leo's called up to put her on the reserve list. So bear that in mind as well.
Well, I'm actually very chuffed. I'm going to just blow my own trumpet here for a minute. One of my buyers who booked a video call with me because they were struggling to buy. They'd been trying to buy. They'd sold last year, moved into rent, had been rented for a year. They were looking around to buy. And at the end of this call, he said, there was a house that we saw, and it was the one we fell in love with, but we lost out on it to someone else who offered more than we were prepared to offer on it. And I said, has it sold? And he went, well, it's been off the market now for a while, and it's sold subject to contract. I said, have you thought about calling the agent? He went, no, I haven't. I said, call the agent. I said, if that's the one you fell in love with, it's going to cost you 30 seconds to make that call, and you won't be any worse off. And he got it. He rang the agent. The seller was frustrated because their buyers were dragging their heels and wouldn't going through, and they sold it to him. And it's just so it's definitely, Leo, it's definitely worth chasing up a property if you think it's the one.
Yeah, and I don't think agents recognise that they're not what's the saying? If you correct me here, but they're not judge, jury, and executor.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Yeah.
Like you're as a facilitator, an advisor, a negotiator. The word agent is acting on behalf of somebody else, not making decisions for somebody else without conferring with that person first. So that's important to remember. Yeah.
Mike Dennington asks, are you lowballing the marketing price to get a higher success rate? So I think what he's doing is a shaded accusation of, are you selling your client's property?
No, that's good. Look, you can price too high and get accusations, and you get priced too low potentially and get accusations. No, as long as the advice for the client's very clear, you've also got to remember, right? You're on the market in competition, not in isolation. So, and it comes back to your question, the other person's question around, the short answer is no, we're just more accurate about pricing, but because we spend longer analysing it, a bit of gut feel thrown in there because everyone needs a bit of that. But let's, like the client, for example, that I've just explained about earlier, we were like offers in excess of 800, but the target price to get to that we spoke about is where our kind of performance level fee kicks in excess of was 820. So the target price was to get to 820. But how do you get there? There's a million ways. 840, take an offer. 800, get competition.
Yeah.
And that all comes down to the seller's situation.
See, I firmly believe that unless you've got competing offers, you haven't discovered what the market will pay for your home. If you've only got one offer, you're probably underselling it.
And I had a client ring me the other day and say, "Oh, Perry, I'm under offer." I was like, "Oh, wow, I didn't see you go on the market." She was like, "No, the agent done a one-off viewing before market and they offered the full asking price." And it's really hard, like, because you think, let's not burst their bubble, like, very well done. But I'm thinking, well, if that person would pay the asking price, what would happen if it went to market?
Yeah.
But again, as long as the client is happy, they might not have wanted the Saturday viewings every Saturday and all that kind of stuff. It might suit them perfectly.
Now, I've got a question that I want to put to you from me to you. I touched on it before we started the live stream, but as you may know, and as a lot of my viewers know, I am bringing out an open source house price index, and it's open source because it's going to be exchange prices reported by the public, reported by agents who wish to contribute their exchange prices as they happen, and conveyancers who wish to exchange, who wish to report there. So you've got buyers and sellers, you've got agents and conveyancers, all of whom know the exchange price and the day of exchange, right? Don't they? So that's four parties at least on every transaction that know the exchange price and when it exchanged. Now, because the land registry only reports roughly, it's actually less than 10% of transactions go into its new monthly housing market index every month. The bar is very low of how many you need to get to match or exceed the land registry sample size. So I am trying to bring out this open sourced or crowdsourced house price index, which will be reporting, I'm hoping, exchange prices nationally from within the last month or the last 2 months. So because the land registry doesn't report for like some months later, it's 2 or 3 months at least. So the last month, 2 or 3 months, we'll see. So there'll be January's exchange prices, December's exchange prices, and November's exchange prices that won't have been reported as completions yet. So that there is much more up-to-date actual price bed information and more transparency for anyone who wants it. My question to you is there anyone for whom this would be a bad thing, or would this transparency on house prices be universally good? What's your view on it? I mean, from agents' point of view, what do you think?
Universally good, yeah. I'm a massive fan of warts and all information as it happens. Anything that we can use to make information more current. You know, there's situations. For example, let's say this house that we're selling is going to sell for 810 to a cash buyer, but it had offers of 820 from a chained buyer. There's things like that you're still going to have to. This is why I only ever guide price everything, because you never do know, and that exchange price won't know that there's someone offered 10 grand more for the property that was probably still quite interested in it for 10 grand more. So all data will only be as accurate as you can possibly make it, but that's making it way more accurate than it currently is, which is a complete nightmare at the minute.
Right, but it's quite important. I should actually add this. Although this house price index will be transparent, it won't be revealing individual addresses and prices. Sure. It's the collective prices for that area. They obviously, in every individual completion gets published by the land registry eventually anyway, but there'll be no compromising of privacy or personal situations in the course of this index. But I mean, my objective with it is to end the practice of overvaluing and to remove how much do you think my property is worth as a question at the marketing appraisal. Because it's like, well, we now understand that the market is whatever the market is. I'm now more interested in about how you're going to market my property and what your service levels are like and what your success rates are more like, and just try to remove, because I mean, I don't know if you know this, we put it out as a test yesterday, and within 3 hours it got hacked by humans, not by bots, not by crawlers or anything else. It was maliciously hacked by a human. We saw what happened. We left it open to see how long it would take. 3 hours. There are people out there who do not want this to happen. There are people out there who do not want this to happen. Because if you think about it, it's even a threat to what are the companies that benefit from overpricing and from the housing market fog when no one really knows what's happening until it's much too late, right? Well, the big agents who rely on overvaluing, like your old boss you mentioned, who said, "Oh, just stick 10% on whatever you think it is," but also new homes builders who rely on inflated asking prices a lot of the time and then negotiate. They may not like it. I mean, I think that, again, transparency in the long run is always good for everyone. The only people who would object to it would be shady practitioners, if you know what I mean. So I'm glad to hear you say that you think it's great for everyone. And I'm obviously glad, therefore, that you're implying that you're going to be happy to share your exchange price with us too. So that's fantastic.
We'll be logging in every day. I think as well, look, what I just wanted to share on the whole overpricing piece is it is always the agent, but it's not always driven by the agent. What agents need to do, there's a lot of, I would say half and half, a lot of the time it's the seller saying, well, I think my house and my kitchen and my garden's way nicer than that one at 1 million. It's been on the market for 6 months. So I want to put mine at 1.2 million. What they kind of miss is to get that one sold might need to be 800-900 grand. So theirs is actually worth 1 million, but they don't want to market the same as that house. So I won't go into loads of detail, but it's the agents need more confidence to kind of say, look, I'm really sorry. I just feel like that's way in too much. So I won't be the one to do it, but there'll always be someone to do it. So I think it's a very hard, you and I have both been, me for the last, since I was 12 years old, because my mum had a bad experience with an estate agent, hence why I wanted to become one. But we'll carry on the campaign. But I just feel like sometimes it's the agent is the punch bag in the middle and the shoulder to cry on and the person to blame a lot of the time. But a lot of the time as well, it is driven by, and we can only take instructions from the client. Although the agent might have suggested a price, the seller could have been like, no, I think you're being ridiculous. Let's put it on at this. So always ask why, how did you arrive at that figure? Show me something that you can base it on that's going to be, rather than just picking it out of the fresh air.
So what you're saying, that the seller should always ask the agent why that figure, or the agent should always ask the seller why the seller thinks it's worth so much more?
A bit of both, really. Price should be a market position and discussion. It shouldn't be I'm going to choose him because he's told me the highest figure, because he might be running really low on his target that week, and he'll tell you anything to get you to sign on a dotted line. But at the same time, he might have just unintentionally got it wrong. So people assume that overvaluing is always premeditated, but it isn't. Sometimes it's very good intention of the agent, but he got it wrong.
Well, I mean, the other thing that adds to sellers' expectations is the endless media puff about house prices going up and Rightmove's asking price index, which makes it look so much higher than it always is. And the endless sort of, everything's fine, it's always good, everything's fine. Anyway, Perry, we've been going for over an hour. The time has gone like that for me. I am just so grateful to you for coming, giving me your evening, your personal home time on this video. I hope all my viewers, thank you very much, all viewers, for watching this. I hope you found this as interesting as I have. Please remember, if you're watching this and you think of someone who needs to see this, make sure you let them see it, okay? And in the meantime, if anyone else, if you want to find me on my website, mhwc.co.uk, where I've also got, I don't think Perry's seen this, which is proving very popular, a first-time buyer offer email template.
I have seen that. I have seen it, and it's brilliant. So well done.
Oh, mate, thank you very much. I had one agent contact me a couple of days ago on LinkedIn going, it's much too aggressive. It's much too aggressive. It needs to be nicer. Look, but I always say, make friends with you. I've always said to buyers, don't treat agents badly because they're agents. Be nice to them because they're the people you want recommending your offer.
Well, look, your thing's a template, right? Use it as that. If the agent's been an absolute douchebag, go in heavy. If he's built a nice relationship, fluff out your hard template and make it a bit nicer. But the fact you've got one to base it off is very good and helpful.
Fantastic. So, guys, thank you all very much. If you are struggling and you're in the Southeast or anywhere else for that matter, and you want to get Perry's team onto your home, get in touch. It's powerbespoke.co.uk. Let them know that Charlie sent you. Very important. Otherwise, genuinely, thank you to everyone for your time watching this video. Thank you for the support I've been getting from lots of you as well. Perry, great to see you again, as always. Talk to
Pleasure.
you again soon.
Thank you.
Anything you want to sign off with to the audience?
No, just, yeah, thanks for taking up an hour and 5 minutes of your evenings to try and improve the process a bit more. Yeah.
I have to say, this evening's audience was much better behaved than last time, weren't they?
They were, yeah. They didn't like me last time.
Thank you, guys. Thank you all very much for watching. Great to have you here, and see you soon. Bye-bye, guys.
Take care.